Hi and welcome. My name is Lawrence Baker. I'm an Adobe certified expert in Photoshop CC and Photoshop Lightroom. This video is going to be about the quick selection tool and the quick mask mode. Now, the quick selection tool is the Rolls-Royce of selection tools. On images like this, especially photographs, it's the go-to tool. It's Adobe making your life a lot easier. Now, the quick mask mode requires a selection in the first place. Now, I'm going to come to it towards the end of the video. So as not to lose you, I'm going to use the quick selection tool to make a quick sort of selection on his head of this bird. Now, to go to the quick mask mode, you either click this here, go up to select, edit in quick mask mode, there, or you press Q on your keyboard, quick mask mode. It requires a drawing tool like the brush or the pencil. Normally you would use the brush, and all the bells and whistles around a brush will apply. So you're using a brush, and the brush you choose is quite important. So I'll cover it later. It's just to show you what I mean by quick mask mode. Now, white will take away from the mask. So the colored areas are the areas you don't want selected. And that's what mask means. It's the areas you don't want. If you took your car down to the garage and didn't mask out the windows and had your car or sprayed with paint, you would have painted windows. So that's what a mask is. Unfortunately, or fortunately, inside Adobe Photoshop, Adobe have allowed us to switch that concept around. More of that later, but it's not that bad as it sounds. Right, I'm going to come out of this now by pressing Q. I'm going to press Command D, or I could go to select and deselect. I'm on a Mac, so it's Command D. On a PC, it'll be Control D. So that will get rid of the selection. These shortcuts are important to remember, because when you're working quickly, you need to use these shortcuts, or else you'll lose your patience very quickly. So Command or Control D will get rid of any selection on that image. Right, on any image to be totally exact. So this is the quick selection tool. It's got the marching ant symbol, and that's the official term for the sort of selections you see. So if I paint there, that is marching ants. That's what Adobe call it. So try and use it yourself. Command or Control D to get rid of the selection. So if it wasn't, or let's say this wasn't showing, I could right click and find it, or just press down with the left mouse key and it will show the tools underneath. Because you know from that triangular symbol there are other tools underneath. Very few tools here will not have that triangular symbol. So if you don't see what you've got, you've really got to understand this toolbar here, because it's not available really anywhere else. You have to understand this. So I want to go to the magic wand, let's say, which selects on color. If I want to get back, I can right click to go to quick selection tool. I can go Shift W, which is the keyboard shortcut for magic wand and quick selection tool. So Shift and W will cycle through them. So let's get back to the quick selection tool. Let's go up to the tool option bar. Now, you can have presets for your tool. In other words, you can have different settings set up. You wouldn't often need to use this with the quick selection tool. It defaults to add to selection. You also have got new selection here. And what that means is, if you created a selection and didn't want it to be joined up with your previous selection, you would press the new icon here. So I'll show you quickly what that means. I draw there. If I go to new, it creates a new selection based on that area. So you wouldn't often need to use it, but it's there to be used. So I'm going to go back to the normal tool, Command or Control D to get rid of that selection. As I said, I can go select, deselect, but I'm not going to. This one is very important. It's to subtract from a selection. And that means if you make a mistake and go outside of this bird, let's say, you can paint around with the brush on the minus symbol one here to get rid of the selection. But again, keyboard shortcuts are crucial. If you hit Option or Alt, depending on if you're on a Mac or PC, you can subtract from the selection quickly without going up here. It's very important to work quickly with a brush, or as I say, you will lose patience and give up. Now, underneath here, I wouldn't worry too much about it. You can play around with the size, the hardness, the spacing, the angle and the roundness. you can control the size of the brush with the mouse wheel, or if you've got a Wacom tablet. I would recommend you don't use it. But if you want to set it to, let's say, stylus wheel, and if you're on a mouse, you want to make the size bigger and smaller with the stylus wheel, it's up to you. I use the square bracket keys, left and right. Left hand square bracket key will make it smaller. Right hand square bracket key will make it larger. The brush, that is. Hardness you would hardly ever touch. Don't get involved with this panel. It's not absolutely necessary. Sample all layers, which means it will look down into the other layers to make the selection. Again, it might be useful in certain circumstances, but for this video, it's definitely not going to be. Auto Enhance stops jagged edges of the selection. So I would keep it ticked and never worry about it, especially on photographs. Now, once you've got a selection, you've got the Refine Edge tool available to you. I will show you it in a minute once we've got a selection. That covered, let's start painting. Now, I want to go quickly, so I'm going to press the right-hand square bracket key to make my brush larger. As I said, these keyboard shortcuts are really important for working quickly. Now, I've selected nearly all that bird very quickly. I'm going to make the brush smaller to come to the edges here. Now, it's best to keep half in or just slightly go over the edge of your bird or object, whatever object you're using. Now, I need to press the Alt key. I could come up here, but I'm not going to. But you'll see it change at the top when I press the Alt or Option key. So here we go. I'm taking away from the selection. I'm going to paint a little bit more on the edge there. So it's about manual dexterity to a certain extent. Now, I probably won't get that tail in, but I'm going to give it a go. I've brought in too much. Alt. Now, this is a very difficult thing to select. I'm not denying that. So I picked it deliberately, knowing it would test my own masking skills. But there's no skill as such. It's just the more you use it, the better off you'll be. So I'm going to press Alt again, because I think it's a little bit fuzzy there, and come around the legs a bit more. Now, this area is covered by heather. I really haven't got a catch chance in hell, but I'm going to give it a go. And again, I'm picking up far too much. I might go down a little bit more. And what I'll do is Alt key, make the brush larger, then Alt key, sorry, and just try and take this area out. I probably would finish this off in quick mask mode. Quick mask mode is going to be your savior. And this is why I've included it in this video, because it will stop you getting really frustrated trying to make selections on difficult images like this. You just go to the quick mask mode and paint in the areas you want, or paint out the areas you don't want. So let's press Alt again and see if I can just try and get these legs in one more time. I can see I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to have one more little go. And that's as far as I would probably go with this image. I know that the Refine Edge will be my friend here. I've got a little problem there, just to go over it quickly before I press Refine Edge. Now, Refine Edge tool is now available to me. It looks far complicated than it is. So let's start off. Now, I would say pick your view straight away. Now, if I click Show Radius, it will show the radius of the edge. I don't often have it ticked. Show original, well, that will show the original selection, and you don't often need that ticked. It's the view that counts. Now, you can cycle through this by pressing F to cycle through views, or you can press X to disable it temporarily. But I just look for a colour that I know will make this selection stand out better, so I'm picking on white. Now, you could pick on black. You can go to overlay, which is normally red. Marching ants was the normal selection. Well, you just come from the selection, so I wouldn't often find the need of that. So on white is going to do me. I could pick it on layers as well, but I don't have any layers at the background layer, and that's black and white. I would rarely use that. So I'm going to stick with white. By the way, guys, I should have duplicated that background, because it won't often work on the background because it's a padlocked image. So I would probably now have to go out and create a new layer with the mask on it. As I said, mask has a definitive meaning. It means the areas you don't want. And when you create a mask, it's an alpha mask. It's a black and white thing, and also based on the 256 shades you get between black and white. So in other words, grey. Don't want to confuse it too much. Anyway, I'm on white. Let's run through these quite quickly. Edge detection. Now, Smart Radius works very well on some edges, but the edge is too soft or too hard, it won't work as well. Radius is about the brush on the left and how far it's going to look into the edge of your object to define the edge of the selection. If it's not doing you much good, and it seems to be bringing out my mask far too much, encroaching into the background, so I'm not particularly enamored with it at the moment. So let's take all these back down to their default. As I said, Smart Radius might not help you, and I don't think it will on this occasion, so I'm unticking it. Sometimes this can be a great help, especially with flyaway hair on long hair. And that's seen as the Everest of selections and masking, is capturing flyaway hair, and Smart Radius works very well. But as I said, it doesn't work very well on some edges. Just experiment with it. Adjust edge. So this is adjusting the edge. That was about edge detection, Smart Radius. This is about adjusting the edge. Now, smooth means, let's say I had it on marching ants view, which is the proper term for these dashed lines you get around selections. So it's Adobe's term, so stick with it. Now, if I had smooth on, it would smooth out any angular edges I had of these marching ants. Now, I don't often use smooth, but if I've got something that's a little bit blocky and I want to smooth off the edges and actually lose some of the edges, bring the mask in a bit, I would probably use it. So all these tools here, you've got to play around with them. Feather will soften the edge of the mask. What do I mean by that? As you can see, what it's doing at different pixel settings, it's not based on percentage, not based on 100. You're kind of softening the edge. It can be very useful sometimes, especially if you shifted the edge inwards and you want to soften it off so you don't have the jaggies. And the jaggy means when you go to put it onto another image, you composite it on top of another image in a layer, you don't have these horrible jagged edges. So feather can be very useful. Contrast, on the other hand, is totally opposite. And this is a percent tool, by the way, so it'll make the edges very sharp and like that. And I wouldn't recommend it because you don't want sharp edges on your composite. So I'm taking contrast back down. Shift edge I find very useful because I can see I'm picking up a lot of the background here. So what I probably would do is shift the mask inwards so it's encroaching on the bird. And as you can see, I'm getting rid of some of these edges here. Then I would feather it slightly. Now, this is the way I do things. Other people might work differently. So I've got a nice feathered edge and I've got a few problems around there. Now, I didn't show you the brush tool. You paint round, encroaching onto the edge to help it select the edges. Now, you can see it's doing a bit of a better job here. I apologise for not showing that in the first instance. Now it's actually done a very good job with those feather settings, so I quite like this. Now here's going to always be a difficult area. It might make it worse. Now I'm encroaching into the heather there, so I'm not getting too fussy, but there's a bit difficult. I might go around the whole bird as a matter of fact. Now I've just ruined that area there, so I'm not going to go too far. The brush is the normal tool you would use when your edges are not sharply defined. I'm just not 100% sure there, but go around there. Now, I might feather it a tiny bit more. Now, decontaminate colours is almost like smoothing off. What it will do is, if you've got a multicoloured edge, it will remove some of those colours to make it look more smooth on the background you're going to place it on. So it can be really useful. But once you tick it, you're limited to not using layer mask and selections. So you can't output to selection. So I don't often use it, but you never know, it might be useful on some occasions. I'm playing around with it now. You can't see a lot of effect because it's something that works on the minute or the small pixels at the edge of the mask or selection. So I'm going to untick it. Now I'm going to output this to a selection because I know this is not a perfect selection and I need to use the quick mask mode to show you how you can save your selections. And this is the first aid kit for everyone making selections. If you can't use the quick mask mode, you're going to get very frustrated very quickly. So I'm going to output to selection because, as I said, the quick mask mode requires a selection. So here we go. I'm output to selection. I've got my selection. Now I could come here for the quick mask mode. I can go select, edit in quick mask mode, and anything to do with selections is usually under this menu, by the way. Or I can press Q on my keyboard. I'm going to press Q. Straight away you have this red overlay. Now you can change that color by double clicking on this, the quick mask mode there, and you can, as I said, Adobe have given us the ability to swap round what the mask area is and what the selected area is. Now you can see I've dropped my opacity down to 30% from 50% it normally is set at, because I like it a little bit less opaque than it normally is. I recommend you don't change that, because masking means the areas you're blocking out, and it's important you understand that, so don't play around with it. So I press Q again. I've got a red overlay. I'm quite happy with that. I could have gone for another colour. I might actually change it because I think it's too similar to the bird, and pick a disgusting green colour up here. Right, so okay. So I press on the quick mask mode again. I've got this green colour. Now it's not too bad a selection, but as I say, I'm not going to get very far with these areas here. And I need to tidy it up around here and around here. So you need to use a drawing tool like the pencil or the brush. You know, you have to use this tool. There's no way around it. The next most important thing to remember is you can only paint with black and white or shades of grey, etc. So to get to black and white, there's one very important keyboard shortcut, and that is D. So if I was to change this, don't forget it'll always be based on black and white. I'm picking red to get a grey colour. If I hit D, I'm not going out to the menu because you should remember this keyboard shortcut. It sets to the default colours, which is black as the foreground and white as the background. To swap between the two, you need another keyboard shortcut, X. D and X are the most important keyboard shortcuts as far as I'm concerned. So D for default colours, black foreground, white background, X to swap them over. Because once you start painting with your brush or pencil, you need to swap colours quickly, because black will add to the mask, in other words, the areas you don't want, and white will subtract or take away the mask. So I'm going to paint in areas I know I've got a problem. I need to press X to get to white. I need to be in the brush tool, which is here. Again, all the caveats apply. If you can't see your brush tool, just hold down the left mouse key, right click, or go Shift B to cycle through them. So I'm going to try and paint out some of these areas here. This is taking away from the mask. The mask is the dark area, the green area, I don't want selected. So I've got a few problems here, and I'm going to make my brush smaller by using the square bracket keys. The left-hand square bracket key will make it smaller. So make it a bit smaller. And I'm not going to get a perfect mask here. Now I can play around with hardness because I have the brush. I'm using the brush tool natively. I'm not using it as part of another tool. So I press F5 to get my brush flyout menu. I can pick a brush, and I'm going to pick a very soft brush. And notice that means the hardness is set to 0. So I can feather the edge of this mask, make it softer by using this brush. There's ways of playing around with hardness on the fly and size, but I'm not going to show you that now. I just want to get the concept in your head that you're using a brush. So I know that area is bad. I'm on white. Now if I want to flick around, I press X because I've just encroached on that mask. I could get down into this area here and paint this. It's not going to be perfect, obviously. So I need to press X again to take out some of this area here. So I'm painting onto the mask. As I say, unfortunately, Adobe have given you the power to swap the mask around for the selected area or the mask area. So I would stick to the defaults. Don't forget you can change the colour if it doesn't work. Now, I'm not unhappy about that mask. I'm pressing spacebar and command to zoom in. I could have gone command or control plus or command or control minus. But I prefer to use spacebar, command, zoom tool and zoom in. I've got a few problems there. And if you want to make decent marks, you've got to be this fussy. There's no two ways around it. Now, as you can see, it's done a pretty good job around there. I'm not going to play around with it too much, but I'm just going to paint out some areas I think it's where it's encroached a little bit. You're not going to get a brilliant mask, and I could get really fussy and go inside those feathers, but I'm not going to because I'll probably bore you. So, as I say, You can use a feather on the brush and make it very soft and very large and sort of go around edges. But I think I've done quite a good job there. Now, another keyboard shortcut is Command 0. It's under the View menu normally. That means Fit on Screen. And it's the most important shortcut when you can't see all of your image. Command 0. Now, I've finished with the brush. I could have used a pencil or anything else. I think I've done as well as I can with this mask. I need to exit quick mask mode. I can just press down here, go to select, untick that, or I can press Q on my keyboard. Q. Now I've got my selection. Because I'm not actually in a selection tool like the quick selection tool, I need to pick any selection tool, and I'll probably go back to refine edge and look at my edge again. And I don't think it's that bad. I've got a few problems there, but I'm not going to cover it now because this video has gone far too long. So I'm now going to output it to a new layer with a new layer mask. There's my background. If I put it back on, it wouldn't show any difference. You notice I've got the layer mask there. Now a mask is going to appear on the layer, but it also appears in the channel as well, but also on the layer. I can have a channel mask, which is called an alpha mask. That's still an alpha mask, but it's linked to my layer. So as you can see, if I take everything away here and just click on that and take those away, that's what really a mask is. You can see the grey areas on the edge there, the softness of it. It's a luminosity thing. It's based on black and white and a 256 shades between black and white in between. So that's what an alpha mask is. It basically is that. All that selection, all that work you've done is created that. It's basically black and white. It's a luminosity thing. So I've covered quite a lot here, guys, and I've probably gone a little bit too far. What I'm basically trying to say to you that a mask is the areas you don't want to see. It's based on black and white. 256 shades in between. The best tool you can use is the quick selection tool on photographs. Where you've got very defined objects like squares or blocks, the other selection tools might be fine. The magnetic selection tool is not bad, but I prefer the quick selection tool. They almost duplicate each other. But if you really got a very difficult mask or selection to make, the pen tool is the best tool to use. And it's very advanced only because it requires a lot of manual dexterity to use and a lot of practice. I hope I haven't gone on too long, guys. I hope you've learned something, and I hope I haven't made a mistake. I don't think I have. I've done this on the wing. Thanks very much, guys.